What's up, everyone? So Renee, Katie, and I decided to do our service learning project on the Bufo toad toxicity. I just want to let you all know now that there's some pretty big scientific words in here that I know I'm not pronouncing correctly, so just bear with me. Okay, so this non-native invasive species in Florida is known as the Bufo toad, but the true term for it is called the cane toad or the marine toad. The scientific name of it is Rhinella marina, but it was recently changed from Bufo marinus. Okay, the origin of the cane toad. So the cane toad is the largest toad in Florida. The toad is not native to the United States, and it was originally brought to the United States to control white grubs and sugarcane fields, but that plan, however, did fail. The current invasive populations happened as a result of an accidental release of about 100 specimens from the stock of a pet dealer at Miami Airport in 1955, and by subsequent releases by pet dealers in 1960s. Cane toads are highly predaceous exotic species that will eat all types of frogs and toads. This species is skilled at locating all types of food, and they have also been known to eat pet food. So now I'm going to go into talking about how to identify the cane toad. It is important to know the difference between the cane toad and other similar toads, such as the southern toad pictured here. The southern toad is often mistaken for the cane toad, but it is not poisonous. It is native to Florida, and it is also playing an important role in our ecosystem. Misidentification with the cane toad, as well as displacement by the larger toads, has caused a decline in the native southern toads numbers. There is some ways you can tell the difference between them. So first, the cane toad has very large triangular parotid glands, whereas the native southern toad has more oval or kidney-shaped parotid glands. The southern toad does have two horns or ridges on the top of its head, whereas the cane toad does not. And another difference would be their size. So the cane toad ranges between 4 to 6 inches, whereas the southern toad is between 1.25 inches to 4.5 inches. So now the description of the cane toad. So like I mentioned previously, the cane toad does range between 4 to 6 inches, and I guess they have been known to reach a max of 9.5 inches. An important note is that any toad in Florida that is larger than 4 inches is not native to Florida and is almost certainly an invasive cane toad. So some identification of a cane toad would be that their body is tan to reddish brown, dark brown, or gray. Excuse me. The back is marked with dark spots. And as you notice in all of the pictures, they are very warty. And like I mentioned previously, excuse me, large triangular parotid glands are prominent on the shoulders. And parotid glands of native true toads are oval, like the southern toad I had mentioned before. So unlike native southern toads, they do not have ridges or crests on the top of the head. So now to talk about cane toad breeding. Cane toads breed all year round in standing water, streams, canals, or ditches. Their eggs are laid in long strings and are virtually indistinguishable from eggs of native true toads. Their call is a low-pitched trill and a chorus that sounds like an idling diesel engine. Their diet consists of beetles, centipedes, crabs, millipedes, roaches, scorpions, spiders, and other invertebrates. Also frogs, small reptiles, small birds, and small mammals. And cane toads prey on native frogs, lizards, snakes, small mammals, and just about anything else they can fit in their mouth. And now about their habitats. So these toads are nocturnal and can be found in areas where people are, such as suburban neighborhoods, schoolyards, golf courses, and some agriculture areas.
Okay, so let's get into capturing the cane toad or Bufo toad and some things of what you should do, what you shouldn't do, a little bit on yard safety, pet safety, and then finally I'm going to show you guys how to humanely euthanize them. There's 2 different ways that you can euthanize a cane toad or Bufo toad. So first and foremost, it is unethical and against state law to release cane toads elsewhere. Do not just bag them up and toss them somewhere else because you are just causing a problem for someone else. And these are non-native invasive species. So you want to capture them, kill them, and dispose of them. Next, here are some things you don't want to do. First and foremost, like I said, do not just throw a live bag toad in the garbage because you are not killing that toad. You are just relocating it via a not very nice moving way, but yes, they can escape from that plastic bag and then make a new life somewhere else, causing problems for other people. Secondly, you never want to use bug spray or bleach or household chemicals on these guys because that's not humane, and we practice humane euthanasia in our field. And so yes, while we do not want them here, we do not need to torture them in any way. So I will show you the correct way to do that later. But just know, do not use bleach, household chemicals, bug spray, stay away. And finally, you need to measure these guys before you kill them. The Bufo toad, as JL told you, looks very similar to the southern toad. The southern toad is a native species and is actually pretty good and is not toxic. So we do not want to kill these guys. They're already on the decline. So what we want to do is you want to make sure that any toad that you are going to euthanize is greater than 1.5 inches. At 1.5 inches, you can start telling the difference between a cane toad and a southern toad. The southern toad gets little ridges on the head, and you can also look at the parotid glands at that point. Anything smaller than 1.5 inches, just let it go. Don't take the chance of killing a native toad. Let that sucker get bigger and then take it. Some things you need to make your yard less attractive. You want to trim any bushes or shrubs that are hanging close to the ground because that just makes it a really good hiding place for these toads. Turn lights off at night. You also want to empty any food bowls or water bowls because, like JL said, these guys like to eat cat food, dog food. They will eat anything you put out in these bowls. So empty it. Don't let them come up to the yard. Don't feed them. Don't give them free food and rent here. And you want to get rid of the water in the bowl because they like to come and sit in it. And you know what? While they're sitting in it, they might release a little toxin, and then your pet might take a little drink later. So make sure these bowls are empty. And then you also want to get rid of any debris, trash, clutter in your yard, any water sources like leaky water flows, because they're going to come, they're going to lay eggs there, they're going to come to that trash, the clutter, they're going to say, there's my nesting home, and make a nice little home in your yard, and then you have Bufo toads. So here are some things you can do to kind of make your yard less attractive for the Bufo toads to set up camp. Another thing is pet safety at night. I know for those who have big fenced-in yards, it's very easy to let your dog out at night when it has to go to the bathroom because you do not want to go out there with your dog. However, if you have a Bufo toad and it goes sniffing under the bush, there's an ER trip that you didn't need to take. So keep your pet on a leash at night. Don't allow them to sniff under bushes, and just always kind of be aware of what your pet is doing at night because that is when they come out. Now we're getting to the point where I teach you how to humanely euthanize these cane toads. This is my toad. I wanted a real one, could not get one. So you take your plastic bags, 2 of them, just like you're picking up dog poop, and catch them in your yard or wherever you're going. They're fast, so be faster. Grab them, flip it inside out, tie the bag shut, and you've got your captured Bufo toad. Now, once you have it captured, you're going to have 2 different methods to humanely euthanize these guys. And the way to humanely euthanize them is you want to knock them unconscious first before you actually kill them. So the chemical anesthesia way is the accepted AVMA way. And I'm going to show you how to do that now. So you would take your toad back out of the bag, and you need to get either an ointment or a spray that has benzocaine or lidocaine in it, and it needs to be at least 20%. I have Germoplast here. It's just a little first aid spray that you use, and it has 20% benzocaine in it. You take your toad, and you just spray a little bit on the belly. And what that's going to do is it's going to render this toad unconscious. So you spray it and you put it back into the bag, twist it back up, tie it up, got your captured toad, and you just let it sit for 5 to 10 minutes. After 5 to 10 minutes, that toad is out, and you can go ahead then and transfer it into the freezer. And putting it into the freezer, you have to put it in there for at least 24 hours, and that will successfully kill the toad. Once the toad is killed, you can then throw the dead bagged toad into the garbage. The second way is the way probably most people are going to prefer, because you don't have to handle the toad, is the physical anesthesia way. Take the bag, got your captured toad in the bag, and you're just going to chill them in the fridge for several hours. And that's going to render the toad unconscious. The colder temperatures are just going to slowly put them to sleep. And then you put this unconscious toad into the freezer again for another 24 hours to finish the process. And you will have humanely euthanized your cane toad, and once again, toss it, the dead bag toad, into the garbage. This one's a little easier to perform, and once again, you're not handling the toads. So these are the two different ways to humanely euthanize your cane toad. And that is the end of my part. Good luck, Katie. And scene.
Okay, so my portion of the project was on symptoms and treatment for Bufo toad toxicity. For symptoms, this is just like a comprehensive list of what can be seen. You won't always see every single one of these symptoms with every single case, but some of the more common ones are foamy salivation and hypersalivation, like in the picture on the screen, along with really brick red gums. That's also a picture on the screen. You'll also see difficulty breathing. You could see vomiting. The patient could be staggering or stumbling. They'll be a little bit disoriented, maybe have some frantic behavior. They'll have an irregular heartbeat most of the time, and you could see seizure-like activity or convulsions, something along those lines. They might be pawing at their face or their mouth just from being irritated. All of these symptoms will occur within a couple of minutes of the patient coming in contact with the toad. If they're not treated, then death is imminent. So it's definitely something that you want the patient to go directly to an emergency clinic as fast as possible. As far as treatment goes, there is no antidote for Bufo toad toxicity. When they're at the veterinary hospital, IV fluids and medications for seizure or irregular heartbeat can be given. They can be monitored more closely to see if there's anything, but it's basically just like treating symptoms and IV fluids. They might need surgery if they have swallowed the toad or portions of the toad. Just kind of depends on, case by case. As far as first aid goes, if you are talking to a client who their pet has come in contact with the Bufo toad, then recommend using a soaking wet washcloth to rinse out their mouth and their gums. Some places you'll see they'll recommend using a hose to rinse out the mouth. That gives a really high chance for aspiration pneumonia. So it's better just to tell the client to just get a really soaking wet washcloth, rinse out the entire mouth, make sure to get in the gums, all around the teeth, the tongue, as best as they can. If they can have the patient's head facing down so that the water will run out of their mouth versus running back into their throat, then that definitely lessens the chance of any type of aspiration. And they need to do this for a good 10 minutes because you really want to make sure that you get all that toxin out of there. As long as there's still toxin in the patient, then they're still going to be having symptoms. So it's really important to get the toxin out. Soaking wet washcloth for 10 minutes is the best way to do that at home, or if you can do it they can do it while they're on the way to the clinic or something like that, you need to get them to an emergency room as quickly as possible. Another thing is if you can kind of visualize how big the toad is, if the client can do that before they come in, because if you have a really big toad and a really small dog, then that has a worse prognosis than if it was a bigger dog and a smaller toad. So if they can kind of get an idea for how big the toad is, just so the veterinary staff kind of knows what they're getting into when the patient gets to the clinic, then that is also really good information to have. So that's it.
Quickly? No, you don't want it? Watch out. 1, 2. Whoa! You did.